Hey guys, did you know that I have a Patreon where you can support me and plus get awesome rewards? Or if you're thinking to yourself, but Julian, I want even more bang for my buck while still supporting you, you can pop over to my Redbubble and check out my awesome store with new designs appearing regularly. But for now, enjoy the video you're about to watch. Hey guys, it's me, Julian Greystoke. Today I'm wearing my I Super Believe in You Tad Cooper shirt. Today we are going to talk about a book that I just randomly found at my library and turned out that I was really surprised by. That book is The Singer of All Songs. This book stars Calwyn, who is a chanter, which is basically this world's equivalent of a mage, living in an ice-walled city where she takes care of the bees and helps chant to keep up their giant wall of ice that protects them from outsiders and harm, until one day she finds a guy laying on the ground who seemingly flew over their wall, which is unusual because most people can't do that. So she drags his ass back to their compound and they nurse him back to health, only to learn that he too is a chanter and he is on the run from this big bad chanter guy who's determined to become the singer of all songs, a person who can use every type of magic that there is. And basically this book has our heroes alternately on the run from this guy and trying to chase this guy down. The first thing I will tell you that I loved about this book is the magic. The magic is so unique to other magic that at least I've been reading recently. It's all singing based. And because of this, not everyone can do every type of magic. Now certain people have a certain affinity towards magic, but it seems like it's a lot more based on your vocal range than it is on your native magical abilities. So people who can sing lower can do certain kinds of magic and people who can sing higher can do other kinds of magic. Ice magic and wind magic are usually performed by women because they require a higher singing voice. And I really liked that, and it made it so that people have to work together if they want to get all of the magic out there. Now obviously you can train your voice to go higher or lower. The guy character in this talks about how where he was trained they were taught to sing in a higher voice so they could do different kinds of magic. That was really cool. But overall, I loved the magic in this book. Our main character is a follower of a death god, which you all know ticks one of my boxes for things that I love in a book. The goddess of ice and winter is also a death goddess, and so I was hella on board for that. And our main character is interesting, at least at first. The problem is she kind of loses personality as she goes, and that's kind of a big issue with this book. When she starts out, while she's led this very isolated life, you can tell that she kind of has a mind of her own. She was supposed to be training as a healer, but she really didn't like it, and she didn't get along with the lady who's in charge of the infirmary, and so she asked to be transferred, and now she takes care of bees, which by the way, comes up later, her beekeeping skills. So when this guy that she has found decides that he's going to leave and continue fleeing from the bad guy, she sends him off down a river because the only way in or out of that city is this frigid, icy-ass river, but he's got no choice but to swim his way out, basically. And so she watched them go for a few minutes and I was like, okay, well, I've read a lot of books like this and now she's gonna stay home until something absolutely forces her to leave. And then she fucking jumped in after him and swam off on an adventure, and I was like, we're done, this is my new favorite book, we're done. Thank fuck. A female main character who just fucking goes on an adventure. It's so frustrating. So many of the YA fantasy books that I've been reading lately have these ridiculously passive main characters. Even though they might be a badass and kick all of the ass, they just wait for adventure to come to them and they wait for things to happen to them. And it was so refreshing to read a female character who was just like, fuck this, I'm going on an adventure, bitches. Lost my place in my notebook because I threw it. The only problem was this great adventurous, fuck it, I'ma do what I want personality kind of faded away as the book went on. I think it was meant to be the characters growing up and learning that you can't always do whatever the fuck you want in the real world that she's never really seen, but ultimately it doesn't seem like that. Ultimately it just seems like she's dulling down to be less of a character, and that was pretty disappointing. This book does get a fairly large ensemble cast as she goes in her adventures. It's like a D&D game. She's picking up all kinds of new questers along the way. And I really like the way that they all played off of each other, especially when they have to spend some time on a ship just together, and it's just them, and they don't always get along, and they bicker, and they have to spend time on opposite ends of the ship. And I really liked that, because often in ensemble stories, characters will bond way too quickly, and while these characters did bond, they had more realistic relationships where they didn't always get along. However, that said, I wish that the characters had been a little bit deeper, and there are a couple of characters that end up on this adventure who I felt didn't really need to be there. It's almost like they were a character that existed to show you a part of this world, and then they just kind of ended up tagging along when you could have kind of left them behind and been fine. The final battle probably could have gone another way and skipped these characters, and it would have worked. There are very few characters in this that I would call integral to the plot, unfortunately. This book is very active. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of shit going down. They're always moving. If you don't really like journey books, this might not be the book for you. They do spend a lot of time either fleeing from the big bad or chasing after the big bad, and they don't ever really stay in one place for any length of time. Now, like I said, this book was great for me, but it wasn't a 5 stars. One of the reasons being that the characters were a little bit shallow. Another being that the ending felt kind of anticlimactic, and sort of, I was just kind of wondering, like, what are we doing ending? This is what we're going with? It really felt like it was super built up and then didn't deliver. Especially since you had all of these interesting characters with differing abilities. I really wish that we had gotten to see more, but we got to see some. They definitely used their different abilities to help defeat the bad guy in the end, but I wish there had been more of that. It was over very quickly, just sort of like, and then they did this, baha, they won. While I said that the interactions between these characters was pretty good, I wish that there had been more squishy character moments where they really got to know each other. There were a few, but I wish there had been more of these characters just getting to become friends and getting to be as loyal to each other as I at least hope they one day will be, because there are more books in this series. There's also not any romance in this first one. Our main character kind of has a crush on the guy that she saved, but she's a little young right now, so I'm gonna be glad that she doesn't go after this older man until she's a bit older herself. The second half of this book dragged a little bit for me as well, and I just kind of zoned out a few times. But ultimately, I still enjoyed this book. I would still recommend it, especially if you're a fan of Tamara Pierce's books. This has a lot of the feeling of especially her earlier books and how adventurous it is and how sort of no-nonsense and adventurous the lead character is. It definitely harkens back to an earlier time of fantasy where characters maybe weren't as deep, but they were a lot more willing to jump into adventure with both feet. Unfortunately, I don't know when I'm going to get to the next books in this series because I did listen to this on audio, because that's basically how I have to consume my books now. That's just my life. And my library does not have any audiobooks or Overdrive books of the next ones in this series, which is very distressing to me. That said, also, I would recommend listening to the audio of this, although the quality was not great, at least for me. I don't know, maybe it was just the one that I had. But it sounded like it was definitely just digitized from the cassettes. But the voice work and the background noises, there were actually background noises on this, so there would be explosions, and there would be chanting in the background when people are singing, and that was just so good. It really built the world and really immersed you in the story, so I would recommend that you do listen to this on audio if you get the chance. So there you go, kids. Those were my thoughts on The Singer of All Songs. Have you read it? What did you think about it? Comment below and let me know. Don't forget that I post new videos here Mondays and Fridays, and if you liked what you see but you want to see it better quality, don't forget to support me on my Patreon. All of the funds that I get from Patreon are going towards buying me better equipment, so you can look forward to that. Think of it as investing in your own eyeballs. Don't forget that all the links to my social media are in the doobly-doo. Go check those out, and I will see you again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye! What's up, everybody? It is shout out time. Time to shout out to my very first patron, Kim. And if you want to be cool like Kim, become a patron over on Patreon.